Taiwan. I'm Ethan Liu with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. The uniforms to be worn by ushers at this month's presidential inauguration are ready for the big day. At every inauguration and national ceremony, students trained in languages, social graces, and emergency response welcome visitors and keep the event running smoothly. The inauguration uniforms this time feature pants for both the young men and women, a nod to gender equality, but also a safety feature as the ushers have to go up and down steep steps. The uniforms use all Taiwan-made materials designed to help the ushers stay comfortable in the hot May weather. Foreign Minister Joseph Wu says the name of Taiwan's representative office in Lithuania will not be changed to appease China.
我们跟立陶宛之间的关系是不会有问题，我们的台湾代表处不会被改变的。
The office currently operates as the Taiwanese representative office in Lithuania, which the two governments agreed on in 2021. But in a recent interview, Lithuanian President Gitanas Nausėda said that changing the office's name to use Taipei might be necessary to stabilize Lithuania's relations with China. Most offices use Taipei instead of Taiwan to avoid angering Beijing. Wu says his office has not received an official request to change the office's name so far, and that even if a request were made, Taiwan would not accept the change. President Tsai Ing-wen is in the final weeks of her presidency. She's due to hand power to incoming President Ching-te on May 20th. Tsai led Taiwan for 8 years, the first woman to do so. As part of our special coverage in the lead up to the inauguration day, Chris Gorin looks back at some of her diplomatic highs and lows.
It was a major diplomatic achievement for Taiwan. A visit by then U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The first time in 25 years that such a high-ranking U.S. official set foot in the self-ruled island nation. But for President Tsai Ing-wen, it also led to one of her greatest challenges. China, which claims sovereignty over Taiwan, was outraged by such high-level American support for the democratic country. And for days after Pelosi's departure, it surrounded the island with some of its largest ever military drills. China's military presence around Taiwan has barely eased since. The incident highlights Tsai Ing-wen's delicate balancing act in diplomacy. After 8 years in power, she leaves office having raised Taiwan's international profile, but the country's relations with China are at an historic low. Though Tsai took a lighter approach to cross-strait relations at first, China cut off official communication channels with Taiwan soon after she took office. And within a few years, Tsai was more forceful in rejecting Beijing's One China framework.
台湾绝不会接受一国两制，绝大多数台湾民意也坚决反对一国两制，而这也是台湾共识。
On the global stage, the COVID-19 pandemic further highlighted tensions between the cross-strait neighbors, when China continually attempted to exclude Taiwan from global health efforts at forums like the World Health Organization. In contrast to China's harsh lockdowns, the Tsai administration's effective early management of the virus and offers of international assistance helped the image of Taiwan as a country capable and willing to contribute to global efforts.
Taiwan is a model for the world in so many respects. Yet political bullying has kept it from being able to fully share its successes and develop relationships that would all make us healthier, wealthier, and safer.
Then came Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. The relationship between those two countries was seen by many to parallel that of Taiwan and China, including the Tsai administration, which not only provided aid to war-torn Ukraine, but also boosted defense spending and lengthened conscription.
Everything we're doing now is to prevent the pain and suffering of the tragedy of Ukraine from being repeated in our scenario in Taiwan.
But this was a perception that China was quick to counter.
我认为台湾当局有些人借乌克兰问题来蹭热点和碰瓷儿是不明智的行为。那么台湾的确不是乌克兰，台湾从来都是中国领土不可分割的一部分，这是无可辩驳的历史和法理事实。
The tense cross-strait relationship has resulted in some setbacks for Tsai. The few countries without a one-China policy that have diplomatic relations with Taiwan has been shrinking due to Chinese economic incentives to abandon Taipei. When Tsai came to office, Taiwan had 22 diplomatic allies. As she leaves, that number has dwindled to just 12, mostly smaller countries, whose combined population represents less than 0.5% of the world. Despite the loss of these allies, Tsai created new international bonds and strengthened old ones. Delegations of lawmakers and officials from across the world continue to visit Taiwan, and the country is at the center of global conversations about technology and security, regardless of China's pressure. It will now be up to Tsai's vice president and successor, Ching-te, to take over this balancing act and navigate Taiwan through troubled waters. Ryan Wu and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Tune in tomorrow and through to Inauguration Day on May 20th for more of our series on Tsai Ing-wen's presidency. The cabinet is trying to crack down on rising fraud cases with a new bill, one that could affect the operations of Google, Meta, and other internet giants in Taiwan if passed. John Van Trist has this report.
Another scam ring busted, but it's just one of many behind a recent surge in fraud cases. After a busy year, Taiwan's police could be getting backup in the form of a new anti-fraud bill with a special focus on the internet. The National Police Agency says reports of fraud jumped 28% between 2022 and 2023. And while investment scams are by far the fastest growing type of fraud, online scams are on the rise too. For instance, police got more than 4,000 reports of fake online auctions last year, up 42% from the year before. The new anti-fraud bill would make big online advertising platforms help identify and remove scammers' ads. They'll also have to get a legal representative in Taiwan to provide any information the government requests within 3 days. Platforms that don't comply could be fined up to around $770,000 or face even more drastic consequences.
法律代表人现在这个新的规定内落地以后，那能够来配合一起来共同打诈。金钱法如果还是没有效果，情节严重的话，限制接取或停止解析，这是最后手段。
No consensus has been reached about which platforms should be deemed big enough to be subject to these rules. But Google and Meta, both with business interests in Taiwan, are likely candidates. Google already says it will examine the bill. It's dealt with similar regulations elsewhere in the world before.
I think aside from increasing the penalties against severe online fraudulent activities, this proposal actually modeled on the European Union's Digital Services Act a lot. We can see some similarities between these two pieces of legislation.
The bill also aims to break apart fraud rings from the inside. On the one hand, it raises penalties for cases involving large sums.
同一个诈骗行为，诈欺所得1000万以上，处3年以上10年以下有徒刑；3人以上共犯诈欺，又结合假冒公务员、广播网络散布，都加重其刑至1/2。
On the other hand, it offers reduced punishments or clemency for scammers who confess and work with the police. With the cabinet's blessing, the bill has cleared step one toward becoming law. Officials hope it will make a dent in a mounting problem. Luffy Li and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Many of Haiti's most vulnerable people are starving as months of gang violence and political instability show no signs of easing. Maddie Anstruther reports.
Alone and suffering, these children are facing acute malnutrition. There are 82,000 of them in Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, according to charity Save the Children. And the country now has the highest number of malnourished children ever recorded. Gang violence has plagued the country for years, but it surged in February when gangs united to oust the Prime Minister, attacking businesses, torching pharmacies, and targeting state institutions. Gangs now control more than 80% of the capital city, cutting off many of its access roads, which are vital for bringing in food and medical supplies. Residents here are struggling to meet basic needs. At one of the only hospitals still open, mothers bring their children to be weighed and treated. Many of the mothers are malnourished themselves. According to the UN, 4 million Haitians are facing acute food insecurity, with a quarter of those just one step away from famine. But those most affected may not even make it to the hospital for treatment.
Dites-vous bien que cette maman qui n'a pas la possibilité de nourrir son enfant, qui n'a pas la possibilité de lui donner à manger, comment est-ce qu'il peut non seulement ouvrir un dossier, mais aussi acheter des médicaments et payer les frais, que ce soit d'examen, pour pouvoir accompagner la femme.
Famine is not the only cause of child mortality in the city. Hunger is driving some children to join the violent gangs.
People, including children, are joining gang, and that put their life into risk because when confrontation with the police, the gangs put children in the front line in their operation.
A transitional council is attempting to install new leaders to bring stability to the country, but the continued violence is thwarting efforts. Several neighborhoods in the capital were attacked on Wednesday. Homes were burned and gunfights with police broke out. Hundreds have been forced to flee. But for those trapped in the city, a trip to the supermarket can be deadly, leaving many with no choice but to go hungry. Joseph Wu and Maddie Anstruther for TaiwanPlus.
A forest conservation agency is coming under fire for serving up insects not approved for human consumption. The agency, based in southern Taiwan's Tsai, held an event last month promoting insects as a more eco-friendly food source. The event featured a demo on deep-frying the lychee giant stink bug, but the species has not been approved as safe to eat by Taiwan's Food and Drug Administration. An investigation found no one at the event ate the bugs. Taiwan is moving to support the victims of last month's earthquake in Hualien as the community still struggles to get back on its feet. The government will give out stimulus vouchers to help farmers and businesses starting from July 1st. The budget is for 700,000 vouchers with a face value of around $8. These can be spent on agricultural goods from Hualien or on travel in the area. A group of search and rescue dogs needed saving themselves after last month's Hualien earthquake damaged their fire station. Wesley Lewis takes a look at how they're adapting to their new environment.
Using their noses in rocky terrain, these courageous canines played a crucial role in search and rescue operations following the massive earthquake that struck Hualien last month. As rocks and boulders shifted during the quake's many aftershocks, one of the dogs, Fancy, would lead the rest of her team to safety by the water. Fancy's human colleagues say that the pack of rescue dogs are a great help.
我们可能找不到的那个伤病患遗体，对，也是靠他们下去闻气味才找到，所以我觉得他们对我的帮助应该算还蛮大的。
The April 3rd quake damaged the Shoufeng fire station, where the dogs were based, and the brigade was forced to move them elsewhere. Now, Fancy and her fellow rescue dogs, Hero and Wilson, have been assigned to the Hualien County Fire Department. The first order of business is getting them acclimated to their new office.
我一开始会啊，就是这环境就是都不一样，然后味道不一样，他们都会一些很多不确定的感觉啊，但是很快1-2天就适应了。
During work hours, the dogs can be seen patrolling the premises, exploring the nooks and crannies of their new station. They have adapted quickly. Their human coworkers already see them as part of the family.
就是像自己的小朋友，就是有时候出入一些危险的工作环境的时候，都会，就是有时候会不太想放他进去啊，对，就是都会担心他这样。
Fancy and Hero recently passed their advanced search and rescue dog exam with flying colors. The third dog, Wilson, has an intermediate certificate and is still training for his advanced exam. The 3 dogs are all 3 years old. That means they can work as rescue dogs for 4 more years before they retire when they reach the age of 7. Looking ahead to that day, the trainers and first responders have said they intend to eventually adopt the canines. They say in their hearts, they know that they won't be able to part ways with the dogs after years of working together to save lives. Justin Wu and Wesley Lewis for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. I'm Ethan. Take care, and I'll see you next time.